Hey guys, tonight, we slip quietly into a time when the Nile flowed like a silver ribbon beneath the stars and cats, yes, those same stubborn creatures knocking over your water glasses, were treated like actual gods. You're standing on the edge of an ancient Egyptian village, the kind that smells like fresh thatch baked fish and warm sand. The sun has just ducked below the horizon and the air cools into something gentle. That's when you start noticing them. Slipping between the clay homes, leaping silently from roof to roof. Dozens of cats, their eyes gleaming like tiny moons. You think you're just seeing strays, but no, these aren't ordinary cats. In this world, they're sacred, respected, feared. Sometimes people whisper they're the ones keeping the dead from coming back, or the living from drifting too far into the spirit world. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're watching from somewhere strange or beautifully ordinary, drop your location and local time in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You move deeper into the village where the homes are modest, made from mud brick and painted with simple images. Lotus flowers, eyes of Horus, and of course, cats. One mural shows a sleek feline seated proudly next to a small offering table. Another shows it curled protectively around a child. And right then, a real cat brushes against your ankle. You freeze. In any modern neighborhood, you'd think, okay, cool, a stray, but here everyone sees you. The neighbors peek through beaded curtains, their expressions caught somewhere between fear and reverence. One old man nods solemnly and whispers, "You've been chosen." You're not sure if you should feel honored or nervous. Because in ancient Egypt, cats weren't just pets. They were divine, sacred protectors, and they weren't yours, you were theirs. Mainstream historians will tell you, cats earned their revered place by protecting grain stores from rats and snakes. Fair. Egypt depended on grain exports and famine was a constant threat. Cats saved lives with every mouse they crushed. Their practicality bought them their pedestal. But that's not the whole story. You wander to a small market lit by flickering oil lamps. A woman is buying fish not for herself but for the temple cats. She wraps them carefully in linen, kisses the bundle, and places it into a woven basket lined with palm leaves. For Bastet, she murmurs. She watches through their eyes. And just like that, your first god enters the chat. Bastet, the cat-headed goddess of protection, home, and fertility. Unlike her lioness warrior sister Sekhmet, who basically raged for fun, Bastet preferred to guard and nurture. But gentle as she may seem, ancient texts suggest that if you angered her, she could swap that purr for a roar real quick. You pass a wall with a painted warning, a man cowering as a sleek black cat blocks his path. Underneath in hieroglyphs, the phrase, "to harm the watcher is to be watched forever." Spooky. Historians still argue whether this reverence began with utility or mythology. Did the gods look like cats because cats were helpful? Or were cats treated well because people feared angering the feline divine? Your answer arrives suddenly. A child drops a clay cup and it shatters. Everyone gasps. Not because of the cup, but because a cat near the table hisses and bolts. Silence. The mother scoops the child up, muttering prayers. Somewhere, incense is lit. You don't understand what just happened until someone whispers, "If the watcher leaves, the spirit comes in." Apparently, cats weren't just physical guardians. They were considered soul filters. A cat's sudden departure could mean an invisible presence slipped in. Demons. The jealous dead. A wandering Ka, the Egyptian version of a ghostly double. And you're standing right where the cat fled. You shuffle back slowly. There is an old, somewhat fringe belief found scratched onto a shard of pottery near Bastet. When a man dies with a cat beside him, his heart will be weighed with mercy. Not exactly scripture, but clearly passed around enough to hold weight. Egyptians weren't joking with this stuff. There are legal records, legit ones, of people being executed for killing cats. Accident or not, your fate was sealed. Diodorus Siculus, a Greek historian who visited Egypt in the 1st century BCE, recounted how a Roman accidentally killed a cat, and the mob didn't wait for a trial. Even Pharaoh couldn't overrule that kind of justice. You pass a low doorway where cats sleep curled in bowls, baskets, and the folds of priestly robes. No one disturbs them. If one's sleeping on your mat, congrats, you're sleeping on the floor tonight. Hierarchy is clear. And maybe it's just the candlelight messing with your head, but one cat, the sleek black one with the notched ear, keeps looking at you. Like it's not just looking, but measuring. You think about leaving, but the villagers invite you in. Offer bread and fig paste. One of them gestures at the cat. You stay, he says softly. The guardian has claimed you. Oh, cool, you've been claimed. At least it's not a crocodile. You wake up to the soft padding of paws across clay floors and the distant coo of doves just outside a reed-shaded window. A purring warmth presses into your ribs. Yep, the cat from last night has decided your body is now furniture. Lucky you. The villagers pass by the doorway, none daring to enter. A woman leaves a plate of bread and dates nearby, keeping her eyes lowered. You're not sure if you've become a guest or some sort of vessel. But there's a hush around you, and it all seems to orbit that sleek feline now curled at your side like a living amulet. You finally ease up to stretch, and the cat follows silent, poised, expectant. It leads you outside, and the crowd parts. Wordless, reverent. You're starting to realize this isn't just any village. This is a place where Bastet isn't a legend. She's a living presence. You're led by Cat, of course, toward a temple. Its pillars shaped like bundles of papyrus. Its scent wrapped in frankincense and warm stone. There, in the inner courtyard, Bastet greets you, or rather, her statue does. 10 feet tall, polished black basalt eyes made of lapis that shimmer like they know things you don't. Bastet, the goddess of protection, pleasure, and ironically war. You're thinking, wait, I thought Bastet was the nice one, and yes, she is, when honored properly. But like many Egyptian gods, she had two faces. One nurturing, one wrathful. She started as a lioness, fierce and fiery, then softened over centuries into a domestic cat, more graceful, more gentle, but never ever weak. Her enemies weren't armies. They were darker forces, disease, disorder, and spiritual corruption. The myths say Bastet stood between the mortal world and chaos itself, and if a cat yowled in the night, that was her fighting on your behalf. There's a lesser-known tale, quirky and fringe, scrawled onto a faded wall deep within a storage chamber in Luxor. It claims Bastet once unleashed her wrath on a greedy priest who dared embezzle temple grain. She didn't smite him with fire or storm. No, she sent hundreds of cats into his home, all of whom refused to leave. They meowed for days, they scratched his furniture, they knocked over every oil jar. He went slowly mad from sleep deprivation and shame. Eventually, he confessed just to get some peace. Egyptian justice via feline harassment. You sit now in the temple courtyard watching the priestesses bathe a litter of temple kittens in warm milk. They wear silver amulets in the shape of Bastet's head, and they treat the cats like royalty. One priestess turns to you and speaks softly. To anger the mother is to undo the thread of your soul. Right, no pressure. There's a mainstream theory floating around that the transformation of Bastet from a lioness to a house cat reflects Egypt's social shift from nomadic defense to domestic control. Basically, when you stop fighting outsiders and start focusing on keeping your home peaceful, your gods evolve too. Bastet became less about claws, more about calm. Still, calm doesn't mean harmless. You remember hearing a story last night, murmured by a spice merchant at the edge of the village fire pit. He spoke of a traveler, an arrogant outsider who kicked a temple cat because it got in his way. He laughed. Everyone else went pale. That night his campfire wouldn't light. His camel refused to move. He wandered into a dust storm and was never seen again. Some say he got lost. Others say Bastet took him for judgment. The merchant whispered, "If you disrespect her, you don't die. You vanish." Historians still argue whether this was pure myth or if tales like this served a practical purpose to protect sacred spaces and animals from mistreatment. But even skeptics admit when a culture puts this much divine stock in a creature, it's no longer about logic. It's about belief. And belief. That stuff builds empires. You follow the cat through shaded temple halls. On the walls, painted scenes show Bastet warding off evil spirits. Sometimes she's holding an ankh. Sometimes a sistrum, a musical rattle. In every image, she stands between the living and something shadowy just beyond the veil. And then you reach a chamber where cats sleep in patches of sunlight curled in bowls and baskets. One elderly tomcat has his own cushion. The priestess whispers that one saw a demon once. It never returned. You try not to blink. A young boy rushes in, breathless. He's dropped his papyrus scroll. A priestess scolds him but gently. Then she points to your cat companion and says, "Learn from her." She walks only where her spirit is welcomed. You're not sure if that's wisdom or shade. Outside, the sun is climbing. The village stirs with chores trade and soft greetings, and still cats slink everywhere. On rooftops, under carts, inside doorways, each one watched, each one respected. You sit again in the courtyard as your guide. This temple cat who never meows settles beside you like a question mark wrapped in fur. Maybe she sees something in you, or maybe she's just waiting to see if you'll mess it up. Either way, you're not in charge here, and for the first time, you're kind of okay with that. You follow the cat deeper into the temple, down corridors where dust motes float like sleeping spirits, and the air grows cool with age. The walls tighten painted figures closing in as you step into a narrow passage lit only by slats of sunlight. The cat pauses, looks over its shoulder like it's making sure you're still worthy, and trots ahead through a doorway flanked by columns carved with lotus blossoms. You duck beneath the stone lintel and step into a chamber that hums with something electric even though nothing moves. In the center, an altar. Not towering, not dramatic, just a low pedestal surrounded by small bowls of milk-dried fish and little amulets shaped like curled-up cats. There are no people in here, only cats. Dozens of them, sitting in perfect stillness, watching. You freeze, not because they hiss or snarl. They don't. They're silent, patient, like they've been waiting for you for years. Then you see it etched into the stone floor, a passage in hieroglyphs. A priestess later tells you it translates loosely to "let the silent ones speak. Let the eyes that never close see the truth that hides in shadow." Creepy a little, but also kind of poetic. Mainstream Egyptology often skips over just how involved cats were in temple rituals. Sure, everyone knows about the goddess Bastet, but fewer people know that actual living cats were raised in temples, sometimes hundreds at once, not just as mascots, but as spiritual tools. They were believed to sense evil spirits, detect lies, even identify cursed objects. You move closer to one curled cat by the altar and it opens one golden eye. Just one. And in that moment you feel seen. Not by the cat, not even by Bastet, but by something else, something behind the veil of this world peeking through fur and flickering shadows. You remember hearing once that the Egyptians called the afterlife duat, a place layered in tests and illusions. According to the Book of the Dead, souls had to pass through gates guarded by fierce beings. But some fringe texts suggest that temple cats could see into duat, even from the living world. One cracked tablet found near Saqqara describes a ceremony where a priest would hold a cat and walk the perimeter of a newly sealed tomb. If the cat hissed at a certain wall, it was believed a malevolent force still lingered and the tomb remained closed for another 40 days. Historians still argue whether this was just superstition or if the Egyptians genuinely believed cats acted as supernatural detectors. But the pattern shows up often enough in records, temple murals, and personal letters to make you wonder maybe cats were more than just symbolic. Maybe they were literal spiritual agents. You notice one priest kneeling in the shadows chanting softly. His voice hums like wind through reeds. A cat is pressed against his knees, eyes closed. He's not praying to the cat but through it. Like the animal is a conduit, a living hotline to the divine. You whisper to a nearby acolyte asking what the ritual means. She replies, "He's asking for clarity. The cat will know if the spirit of his father lingers." You blink. "And how will he know if she walks away?" the acolyte says softly. "He must let go." You sit quietly in the corner. The cat doesn't move. The priest keeps chanting. And suddenly it clicks. These aren't just spiritual guides. They're emotional anchors. People pour grief, uncertainty, even guilt into these cats, and somehow they walk away lighter, or at least a little less cursed. You hear a story from one of the elder priestesses, the kind of tale she swears is true, though no one else will admit it aloud. Years ago, a plague swept through a nearby village. Everyone panicked except one woman. She opened her home to the sick. She survived untouched. Why? A cat slept on her roof the entire time, never once stepping down. That cat now buried here in this temple courtyard beneath a carving that reads, "She guarded us all." You step outside again into the late morning sun. The temple cat still follows. She leads you to a garden behind the sanctuary where papyrus grows tall and bees hum lazily around fig trees. And there you see it, a shrine shaped like a miniature house with an opening just big enough for a cat. Inside, a tiny altar, candles, more offerings. Silver bells, dried sardines, and embroidered blanket. A priestess explains it is where they rest, where they listen, where they choose. You ask, choose what? Whose home they'll protect next? The cat at your heels leans into your leg and purrs. So that's comforting. You wake again, this time not in a temple bed, but beneath a fig tree with filtered sun dappling your face and a purring mass nestled into the crook of your arm. It takes a second to remember where you are. Egypt, a village that worships its cats like saints. A place where every feline blink seems to mean something. The temple cat stretches, yawns, and then bolts. Instantly. No sound, no warning, just gone. And in that same breath, you feel the entire garden still. The bees stop humming. A bird overhead flutters off. The air grows heavy. You've learned enough by now to realize that's not just a cat chase. That's an omen. The priestess from yesterday rushes out, robes flying behind her eyes, sharp. Which way, she asks. You point down the narrow alley that snakes past a baker's hut. She mutters a prayer and sprints after your guide cat. And you follow because of course you do. You turn the corner in time to see the cat leap straight at a crumbling storage hut. There's a crash inside. You dash to the door where villagers are already gathered staring. The air is thick with flour and something sour, something wrong. Inside, a man lies on the ground writhing. His eyes wide, pale foam at the corners of his mouth, and right there, perched calmly on a stack of grain sacks, the cat watches. Not alarmed, just present, waiting. One of the elders pushes through. He leans over the man and touches his forehead. Then, to no one in particular, says, "The demon left him too late." The room tightens like a held breath. You've stumbled into one of those stranger corners of Egyptian belief, the kind most history books gloss over. While mainstream archaeology acknowledges their obsession with spiritual purity, there's another layer that isn't so polite. The belief in intruders. Not just human enemies or bad omens, but spirits that slipped through the cracks. Some Egyptians believe that certain illnesses were not just diseases, they were possession. And cats? Well, cats could see the difference. The story told here is that this man Tariq mocked Bastet under his breath 2 weeks ago when his business went bad. Not loud, not in front of a priest, but someone heard. And worse, a cat walked away from him the very next day. You glance at the villagers. No one is panicking. They're just sad, like this was inevitable. The temple cat finally jumps down and rubs once against the man's shoulder. His eyes flutter closed, then quiet. Later, the priestess tells you the cat stayed, so his soul can pass. You stare. Pass to wherever Bastet sees fit. She shrugs. Perhaps rest. Perhaps another chance. It's hard to know if you should be comforted or terrified. And it gets stranger. A merchant named Amos leans over and offers a tale half whisper, half prayer. Once a boy chased a mouse across the temple threshold. He caught it, laughed, crushed it with a stone. A cat saw. That night, he fell into a sleep he never woke from. His family buried him beside the temple wall. No one visits that side anymore. Historians still argue whether these tales were cautionary parables meant to enforce moral order, or if people genuinely believed cats acted as divine record keepers. Either way, cats were clearly the bridge between seen and unseen. If one lingered near your house, it could mean protection. If one left, well, you probably wouldn't sleep too well. You stroll back toward the temple courtyard, but now, every cat you pass feels like it's watching for something deeper. Not just your footsteps, your thoughts. You enter a small side shrine where offerings have piled up necklaces, papyrus, prayers, dried fish, and oddly, a toy mouse carved from obsidian. The priestess explains that one's for the soul of a child. His cat stayed through the fever. One fringe theory suggests that these cats weren't just protecting individuals, but binding spirits, like soul anchors. The temples then were not just places of worship, but containment zones, peaceful, sacred, and humming with invisible warfare. You step through another hallway lined with ancient paintings. One catches your eye. It's subtle, easy to miss a cat batting at a ghostly white serpent hovering above a sleeping figure. Below in symbols, the caption, "She kept the breath from leaving." And somehow, even with all this talk of death and demons and divine justice, you don't feel afraid. You feel watched over. Maybe it's the heat, maybe it's the purring, or maybe, just maybe, it's because this place has lived for thousands of years by trusting something modern logic forgot that some guardians don't need armor. Just whiskers. The next morning begins not with sunlight, but with incense. Thick, perfumed, ancient. You wake to the low murmur of chanting and the soft tap of paws on stone. There's movement all around the temple grounds, priests, priestesses, villagers, and in the center of it all, a procession. At first, it looks like a funeral, but then you notice what's being carried. A tiny linen-wrapped bundle adorned with gold thread and delicate lotus blossoms. Not a human, a cat, your temple guide. The same one who's been your shadow for days sits atop a red cushion on a wooden pallet carried by two young men. Her eyes are closed, her paws tucked in. She looks regal, almost smug. "She died at dawn." The head priest says softly beside you, "She was with us for 13 years. She saw 3 generations of high priestesses. And she once hissed at a general who betrayed his oath. 2 days before he was caught." You blink. "So, this is a royal funeral." The priest nods. "Of course." You walk beside them, and the procession moves through the temple gates and into a field of white stones. And there, sprawled across the earth, are hundreds of tiny mounds, each marked with carvings, each one a cat's grave. Mainstream historians have confirmed these feline cemeteries existed. The most famous Bubastis and Saqqara. Archaeologists have uncovered vast fields filled with cat mummies, carefully wrapped, often adorned with protective amulets or painted masks. These weren't just thrown into pits, they were interred with reverence. But there's something even more haunting here. A woman steps forward holding a clay pot. She pours milk beside the grave. Her hands tremble. "She watched over my daughter through every illness," she whispers. "Now, I pray my daughter will grow to do the same." Another man lays a slice of dried fish. "He meowed once at my door when I was about to leave for a journey. I listened. My caravan was attacked that day. I stayed behind. I lived." And then comes the strangest offering, a small mirror wrapped in linen. The priest explains, to remind her of the world she once guarded. You realize something strange is happening here. The cat isn't just being buried. She's being remembered as a soul guardian, a protector, and in some belief, a minor saint. Fringe theories abound about whether these ceremonies were just symbolic or if Egyptians genuinely believed cats held transcendent value. That their loyalty didn't die with them, that a temple cat properly honored could continue guiding and guarding from the next realm. You kneel near the grave as the final layer of earth is placed. A cat nearby purrs softly. Someone begins to sing a gentle melodic hum that has no lyrics but somehow says everything. And then the quiet hits, not absence, stillness. Like the earth itself is exhaling. The priest walks you back toward the temple and tells you the story of Menene, the queen, who once declared that no cat under her roof would die without an honor song. She had a special chamber built just for cat burials lined with moonstone and alabaster. Her own tomb still includes a mural of her curled beside her favorite feline, both wrapped in gold. Historians still debate whether this reverence was a form of ancestor worship or something more mystical. Were cats reincarnations of souls? Were they independent guardians of the human spirit? Or were they simply treated with this devotion because people feared what happened when you didn't? There's a papyrus found in El Kaab that includes a passage thought to be a kind of feline prayer. If I go to the land of reeds, may my cat walk beside me. If she walks ahead, I will follow. If she turns back, I will wait. You wander into a chamber filled with statues, some tall, others small enough to fit in your palm. All cats, all carved with loving detail. Some wear earrings. Some have real whiskers embedded in the stone. One has a tiny fish etched into its belly, and in the center a hollow pedestal. You ask what goes there. The priestess smiles. The next guardian. We don't choose her, she chooses us. And somehow you already know who it'll be. That evening you sit beneath a tamarisk tree as the sun turns gold and the air cools into velvet. The village is quiet. The cats are watching, always watching, and in your lap, as if nothing ever happened, curls the same temple cat from before, alive. Or maybe not. You reach to pet her, but your hand goes right through. You blink, she's gone. A nearby kitten meows and climbs into your lap. The villagers smile. She left you a piece of herself, someone says. No big deal. Just your soul guardian reincarnated. Sleep tight. The kitten stays with you through the night. Nestled against your ribs, its purring barely audible above the gentle chirp of desert crickets and the occasional flap of ibis wings overhead. When you wake, she's still there, warm, alive, undeniably real. The villagers don't say much about it, they just nod. Like it's expected, like it's the way of things. And in a strange way, you feel safer than you've felt in years. As if having a cat asleep on your chest is the closest you'll ever get to wearing a shield forged by the gods. You follow the temple rhythms as days pass, more ceremonies, more shadowy stories. But today, you're not headed into the sacred halls. No, today you're stepping inside a humble house near the market square. Because even outside the temples, cats held sway over daily life. The home smells like barley and warm honey. Clay pots line the walls. There's a soft rug in the corner, and on that rug, of course, sleeps a cat. Middle-aged, one ear notched. Clearly the boss, the homeowner. A merchant named Dijet welcomes you with a grin and a bowl of lentil stew. You sit, thank him, and then pause as he whispers to the cat before taking his own seat. You raise a brow. Is that normal? Dijet shrugs. Of course. I ask her permission to speak freely. Oh. You spoon the stew a little slower. Mainstream sources often mention how cats were household companions, but what they don't emphasize is how spiritually involved those relationships were. Cats weren't just appreciated for catching pests. Egyptians believed that each cat in a home acted as a domestic sentinel, capable of warding off curses, hexes, or wandering spirits. You lean closer as Jit tells a story about his grandfather, a scribe who once rewrote a forbidden scroll late at night. The next morning, his cat had scratched the entire manuscript to shreds. He burned the pieces, That evening, an earthquake struck. The temple where he'd planned to deliver the scroll collapsed, saved by fur jet chuckles. You're not sure whether to laugh or shiver. Then there's the matter of luck. Egyptians didn't just treat cats as guardians. They believed their presence shaped outcomes. A cat walking into a room mid-discussion. That meant your deal would go well. A cat sneezing. Good fortune. A cat staring at your doorway and refusing to come in. Don't travel that day. There's a scene painted on one family's home altar. A cat curled beside the scales of Mayat, the ones used to weigh the heart of a deceased person against the feather of truth. And below it, a phrase scratched hastily by hand, she tilted the balance in my favor. Historians still debate whether this meant Egyptians believed cats influenced judgment itself, or if it was more symbolic, like having a little spiritual lawyer purring in your corner. One fringe theory suggests cats were believed to whisper to Anubis, the jackal-headed god who conducted soul-weighing rituals. Think of it like divine lobbying, one scholar joked, except furrier. Back at Jed's home, the conversation turns toward relationships. Apparently there's a superstition here: if a cat sits between a couple during a meal, they're destined for harmony. If the cat turns its back and grooms itself, they'll argue. You glance at Jet's cat. It's grooming. He sighs. Better eat fast. You ask whether all cats are considered sacred or only temple-raised ones. He thinks for a moment. Any cat may be touched by Bastet, he says, but not all are vessels. Some are just observers. Observers. He leans in. They don't stop the curse. They just watch it happen. You chew slower. Then he tells you about the time his neighbor insulted a visiting priest. The next morning, 3 cats sat on his roof. By nightfall, all his wine jars had cracked from the heat his workers quit, and his sandals were stolen by a jackal. And the cats, still there, just watching. That might be the creepiest version of consequences have eyes you've ever heard. After the meal, Jay insists you take a blessing from his house cat, which apparently involves her gently licking your finger. She does, once. Then walks away with the unmistakable air of a queen who's done you a favor. You're honored and also slightly judged. As you head back to the temple, you notice something new. Each house you pass has a bowl of water at the doorstep. You thought it was for animals. It's not. It's for spirits, to stop them, distract them, lure them into looking at their own reflection so a nearby cat can pounce. You never look at bowls the same way again. You return to your room, the kitten following behind you like a shadow stitched to your heel. She curls up beside the tiny oil lamp and sleeps. And for a brief second, her eyes flicker open just long enough for you to see a faint shimmer in them, like stars, or secrets, maybe both. By now, you've learned to move when the kitten moves. So when she pads out of the temple gate at dawn, tail high paws, nearly silent, you don't hesitate. You follow her through the sleeping village, across narrow alleys, and under rope-hung laundry, still damp with Nile mist. She leads you to the grand courtyard of the palace. Wait, the palace? Guards spot you. They raise their spears, but the kitten walks right between them without pause, and their arms drop like spellbound marionettes. One even bows. You blink. Oh, he says softly, she's one of his. He doesn't mean the pharaoh. He means the pharaoh's cat. Inside, the marble halls gleam. Papyrus pillars stretch toward painted ceilings. And they're lounging on a velvet cushion so plush it probably cost more than a chariot. Is a cat wearing a tiny necklace made of lapis lazuli and gold. A second later, you realize that necklace has hieroglyphs. It's engraved, like a royal decree. This isn't just a pet, this is a court official. Mainstream historians often note that royalty kept cats, but few emphasize how deeply integrated they were into palace life. These weren't just luxury animals, they had rank. They could inherit jewelry. They had designated food tasters. There's even evidence some had guards assigned to them. The kitten at your feet bows her head ever so slightly toward the lapis cat. You do the same. You're learning. A vizier approaches elegant robes, sun-worn eyes, and whispers, "This is Tepi." She once leapt upon the throne when Pharaoh debated war. He took it as a sign to wait. 1 week later, the flood came. The enemy never crossed the river. That story? It's not rare. There's a scroll from the Temple of Karnak describing a similar event when a palace cat refused to enter the war council chamber. They canceled the meeting. That night, a traitor was discovered among the scribes. Historians still argue the vizier says whether these were simply trained signals or divine intervention. He leans closer, but we don't argue. You move through the palace passing murals that feature cats prominently. One shows a feline swiping at a scorpion beneath Pharaoh's feet. Another shows a cat seated between the god Thoth and a scroll of judgment. And then you reach the nursery. 5 children play on woven mats. Toys are scattered wooden birds, linen dolls, and tiny carved cats. Real cats, meanwhile, lounge in windowsills and gently swat at dust motes. A young girl holds one like a baby. A boy draws whiskers on his own face in ink. Do they all have cats, you ask? Of course, the nanny replies. How else would they be safe in sleep? You tilt your head. They say she continues that when a child dreams, their spirit wanders. The cat stays curled near their body and waits. You watch one toddler begin to nap, and immediately a gray cat leaps onto his mat, circles once, and settles against his chest. Guard duty. Some fringe beliefs even suggest that the royal family's cats could intervene in dreams, turning nightmares aside or delivering messages from Bastet. There's an obscure prayer found scratched onto the side of a temple bowl. Whiskers turn the shadows. May my sleep be shaped by her paws. You begin to notice just how seriously cats are integrated into law, ritual, even justice. A story told in the royal garden that evening chills you. A man falsely accused of theft. He protested, swore by Osiris, swore by his mother's grave. The court didn't believe him. Then the palace cat entered, climbed onto his lap, and slept. They released him immediately. Later, a confession revealed the truth. He had been innocent. The real thief tried to pet the cat and got scratched. You can lie to a judge, a palace scribe mutters beside you, but not to a cat. That may explain why the cats here are so carefully cared for. They're not just pets. They're witnesses. As the sun begins to set, the pharaoh himself appears draped in linen, eyes lined with kohl. He walks softly, almost reverently, to where the lapis cat now reclines. He kneels, and the cat? She places one paw on his hand. You're not sure what it means, but everyone watching exhales like a spell's been broken or renewed. The vizier whispers she approves. The kitten beside you purrs once, curls into a ball, and falls asleep. Even power bows to pause. The air tonight is dense, not with heat, but with tension. Even the cats feel it. They move slower, tail tips twitch, ears flick back and forth like radar. You've learned to read their body language by now, so when the temple cats avoid a certain alley, you do too. But then the whisper reaches your ears. A man has defied the watcher. The words pass like smoke between market stalls, picked up by hushed voices, and quickly dropped like something contagious. You follow the trickle of nervous glances to the edge of the village, where a small, cracked house leans toward the sand like it's tired of standing. That's where he lives. They won't say his name, only that he kicked a temple cat, not hard, they say, but intentionally. And then he laughed in the face of the high priestess in front of the altar of Bastet. You don't laugh in a temple, and you don't touch a cat. Since then, strange things have started happening. The man's bread won't rise. His water pots crack overnight. His goat was found upside down in a tree. How, no one knows, but everyone knows why. And now he's vanished. Not dead, vanished. Gone like a dropped pearl into dark water. You approach the house slowly and push open the door. It groans. Inside, dust, silence, overturned baskets. A blanket curled in a corner as if someone was there but only moments ago. A few candles unlit. One sandal. And on the windowsill, a single cat. Black, eyes yellow, watching. You step back. The story spreads like ripples on the Nile. Everyone has a theory. The temple says nothing. The priestess only leaves a small bowl of milk at the house's threshold each morning untouched. Some say the man fled. Others whisper Bastet took him through the shadow. You don't ask questions. You just watch the cats more closely now. Mainstream historians agree that to kill a cat in ancient Egypt, even by accident, was a death sentence. There are Greek accounts of mob justice that even pharaohs dared not interfere with. But what isn't often mentioned, the social exile of those who simply disrespected a cat. Forget legal punishment. Your neighbors would cut you off, your servants would quit, your goods would rot in the market. You would be cursed. And not just symbolically. There's a lesser-known legend scrawled on a wall in the ruins of Leontopolis. Just a few faded lines. To mock the watcher is to awaken what it watches. Nobody explains what that means. Nobody wants to. You walk through the village square that evening and notice that people have added amulets to their doorways. Little cat figurines, bits of lapis wrapped in linen bundles of dried mint, protective charms, just in case. The fear isn't of Bastet herself. It's of what she restrains. The priestess finds you later. She speaks softly. We do not speak his name. It calls him. You nod. Come, she says. You should hear the story. She leads you through a gate up a hill you hadn't noticed before, one not marked on any temple map. At the top, a low square building of black stone. No windows, one door. Inside, the air shifts. Heavy, still. And on the walls, murals unlike any you've seen. Not of cats curled in sunlight or perched beside gods. These cats have teeth. Eyes wide, backs arched. Claws dragging spirits down into the ground. One shows a massive feline pinning a figure cloaked in smoke. Beneath it, the glyphs say the guardian does not hunt unless you awaken the hunger. Fringe scholars have debated the purpose of these murals. Some say it was metaphor representing the cat as a symbol of divine punishment. Others insist it refers to an actual rite, a lost practice where temple cats were invoked as vessels of judgment, a kind of spiritual retribution. The priestess lights a small brazier and places a bit of myrrh inside. The flame dances, throws long shadows, and suddenly dozens of glowing eyes stare back from the dark. Cats, all around, silent. The watchers, she says. You realize this isn't just a room. It's a courtroom. Not for men, for souls. You step back into the moonlight feeling smaller than you ever have. And yet, somehow, protected. Back at your quarters, the kitten climbs into your lap. You whisper, "Would you tell me if I crossed a line?" She yawns and rests her paw over your heart. You decide that's answer enough. You don't sleep that night. Not from fear, though, let's be honest. The feline courtroom and the vanishing man aren't exactly lullabies. No, it's something else. A tension, a stillness in the air. The kitten curls at your feet, twitching in her dreams like she's chasing something or being chased. You drift in and out until dawn when the temple bells chime once. Just once. That's not the normal rhythm. The kitten is instantly awake. She bolts to the doorway. You follow. Outside, the sky is gray, not from clouds, but from dust. The village square is empty. Cats line the rooftops, their silhouettes like statues, all facing one direction, east. You head there too. The priests are assembling at the edge of the village, and soldiers, real ones with armor and shields, are forming ranks. Not a war party. A welcoming committee. For who or what? The answer comes slowly. Over the horizon, a line of chariots. Not many, just 5. But they're marked with symbols you don't recognize, tall standards with foreign glyphs. The lead rider carries no weapon, just a white flag and a cage. Inside the cage, a cat, a temple cat. You feel the air shift like someone dropped a bucket of cold water on the whole desert. The priestess next to you whispers, "They've taken a guardian." You don't need context. You feel it. This isn't just disrespect, it's provocation. The foreign envoy steps forward, bows slightly, and speaks through a translator. "We come in peace," he says. "We found this cat in our city. It entered our temple. We offer it back with respect." Sounds reasonable, until you see the bruises on the cat's legs, the way it flinches at the bars. And then it hits you. They didn't bring the cat to honor it. They brought it to test Egypt's limits. You look around, no one speaks, but everyone feels it. This isn't diplomacy, it's a trap. Mainstream historical accounts mention a real event during the Battle of Pelusium in 525 BCE, when Persian soldiers reportedly used cats and other sacred animals as shields, knowing Egyptians wouldn't dare strike them. It worked. The Egyptians hesitated. The Persians won. But what's rarely talked about is the aftermath. How temples mourned not just their soldiers but the spiritual insult. How rituals were performed not for the dead, but for the humiliated guardians. One priest steps forward now, tall, silent. He gestures to the cage. The envoy hesitates. The cat cries out, and that's when it happens. Every cat in the village lets out a low growl. Dozens, hundreds. Some leap from the rooftops. Others emerge from alleyways. They don't attack. They surround. The envoy steps back, eyes wide. His translator stammers. The soldiers raise their shields, not at the villagers, but at the cats. Then the cage shatters. No one touched it. No blade, no tool, just shattered, like glass. And the temple cat walks out calm, bruised, but unbroken. It walks past the envoy without a glance, past the soldiers, straight to the temple gate. She enters. She doesn't look back. The priest speaks one sentence. "You may go," and the envoy does, quickly. The soldiers turn, chariots spin, dust rises. You don't ask questions, neither does anyone else. Later, the priestess explains, "Some say Bastet walked through her. Others say it was simply justice." She shrugs. "But we do not strike with swords, we strike with silence." That night, the temple cat lies on a gilded cushion in the sanctuary surrounded by candles. People come one by one to offer her bits of fish strands of dyed cloth carved figurines. You approach too. She watches you, and for a moment you swear you see flames in her eyes. Not angry ones. Protective. The kitten at your side nudges you gently and lies down beside her tail-curled heart steady. You don't know if a war was just averted or if something older was simply reminded of its place. But you do know this. Egypt doesn't forget. And cats, they never forgive. The temple cat sleeps for 3 days. No one disturbs her. Not the priests, not the kittens, not even the high priestess who keeps vigil nearby like a mother beside a fevered child. The air around her is warm, still heavy with meaning. You sit in the sanctuary's corner each morning watching her chest rise and fall, her paw twitch ever so slightly, her ears flick at invisible sounds. She's not dreaming, the priestess tells you on the second day. She's remembering. You want to ask, remembering what exactly? But something stops you. On the third night, a storm rolls in from the west. Rare for this part of the desert. Wind howls through the temple halls, rattling palm shutters and tossing dust like whispers of the dead. The villagers light lamps. The cats vanish into corners. And then, lightning strikes. Not the sky, a tomb, one of the oldest. Long sealed. You're among the first to arrive at the scene, drawn not by fear but instinct. The wind tears through the graveyard like something trying to escape, or worse, something trying to find its way in. And there, amid the shattered stone and churning dust stands, a priest trembling. "She warned us," he says. "We didn't listen. It's not the broken tomb that chills you. It's what the priest places in your hands. A scrap of linen, scorched. On it the image of a cat embroidered in black thread, her mouth open in a silent roar. And beneath it the words, 'She burns when ignored.'" Mainstream archaeologists agree that some tombs in ancient Egypt were sealed not just for preservation, but as containment, to keep what was buried in not just safe. While many of these theories are waved off as superstition, certain records, especially among temple scribes, refer to the burning ones entities that fed on forgetfulness. Cats, some believed, could suppress their awakening, could warn the living. But if the warnings were ignored, the wind howls again. The priest rushes into the tomb's inner chamber, but the walls have blackened, scorched from the inside. The glyphs that once glowed with gold leaf have melted into slag. A statue of Anubis lies toppled. At the center, a feline skeleton, not buried, Not wrapped. Trapped. The priest falls to his knees. We thought it was just another burial. You turn because the air shifts again, and there she is. The temple cat, awake. Alive. Her fur pressed flat by the wind, her eyes glowing. She steps into the tomb without hesitation and curls beside the skeleton, not in fear, in mourning. The priestess behind you whispers, "This one held the fire alone, too long." That night, the village gathers in silence. Not for ceremony, for protection. They light every oil lamp, place bowls of water at every doorway, sprinkle dried mint and thyme at their thresholds. The children wear amulets of copper and stone, and every cat in the village is fed first. Because tonight, they don't just deserve it, they need it. The kitten at your side paces restlessly. Her ears never stop twitching, and when she finally settles, it's not at your feet. It's on your chest, facing the door. Historians still argue about the role cats played in spiritual defense. Some suggest they were used as early warning systems against tomb curses. Others believe they were believed to physically absorb certain types of malevolent energy, explaining the sheer number of cat burials near ancient vaults. But you're starting to believe the fringe thinkers, the ones who say cats didn't just sense danger. They contained it. You wake in the middle of the night to a loud crack, smoke. You rush toward the temple, but it's not the sanctuary. It's a scribe's home. Fire licking through the windows. Villagers scramble with buckets. But strangely, the fire isn't spreading. It stays inside, roaring like a beast in a cage. Then a cat appears in the doorway, walking out. Not burned, not afraid, just done. The scribe collapses beside you, sobbing. I broke the seal. I read the forbidden scroll. I didn't believe. And the priestess simply says, now it believes in you. The temple cat sits beside the smoldering ruined tail, flicking eyes like twin coals. No one speaks, no one scolds. The fire dies on its own, and you understand. The flame didn't come to destroy, it came to remind. Morning comes hesitantly, like even the sun isn't quite ready to rise after what happened last night. The air is cooler than usual, and the village is hushed not from fear now, but reverence. Everyone moves a little more carefully, speaks a little softer. Even the cats walk slower, as if some veil has thinned and they're still half in the other world. You find yourself once again near the Hall of May at the temple chamber where souls are judged. It's not open to the public, not usually. But today, a priest gestures for you to enter. No words, just a nod. You step in. It's darker than you expect. No torches, just slits of golden light from the ceiling. In the center of the room is the scale, the famous one. Two golden dishes balanced on a beam carved to look like stretched wings. On one side rests a white feather, the feather of truth. On the other, nothing. Yet, you've read about this moment. The weighing of the heart. If your heart is heavier than the feather oblivion, if it balances paradise. But what you haven't read, the cat sitting beside the scale. Jet black, unblinking, silent. She's not there as decoration. She watches the tilt, a voice whispers behind you. The high priestess steps out of the shadows, robes trailing like mist. She listens to the heart, not the confession. You glance down. The cat has her paw gently resting on the base of the scale. Not enough to move it, just enough to remind everyone she could. This is the part mainstream scholars politely dodge. Sure, they talk about Anubis and Thoth, and the crocodile-headed soul-eater Emmet. But some fringe scrolls kept hidden in lesser-viewed temple archives suggest another force occasionally influenced the weighing the feline. Not as a god, as a witness. You walk along the wall and study the murals. In one, a man stands before the scale head bowed. Anubis measures his heart. Thoth records the results. And just behind them, a cat watches. Her eyes are red. Her whiskers arc like lightning bolts. Below it, she warned him. He did not listen. There's another mural more abstract. It shows no people, only scales. But in one version, the feather outweighs the heart. In another, the whisker does. Wait, you look closer. It's real. A cat's whisker drawn faintly rests on one of the scale arms. The tiniest tilt barely noticeable. The priestess speaks again. Some hearts tell lies, even in death. And suddenly you understand. In a land obsessed with balance and truth, where even the afterlife has paperwork, the cats are the wild card. The unblinking judges. Not easily bribed, not impressed by titles, just watchers, ancient, final. You step closer to the actual scale and notice what looks like a tiny notch carved near the base, just deep enough to hold a whisker. You use real ones, you ask. The priestess nods. Only those shed during guarding sleep. Only from temple-born. She holds one up now, white, fine, glinting slightly in the light. This one caught a lie once. The man wept. The cat refused to leave the chamber. His heart was retested. He had stolen from a priest's tomb. Was he devoured? No, she says. He confessed. He was given a second chance. Then, the cat saved him. She smiles. The cat revealed him. That night, your dreams are strange. You float between stars and stone corridors. Cats walk beside you, silent, glowing, endless. Some hiss at shadows. Others meow into the void, and the void retreats. You find yourself standing before the scale. A feather on one side, your own heart on the other. And there once again is your kitten, now grown, placing a single whisker on the edge. The scale sways, then evens out. You wake up gasping, heart pounding, but the kitten's there, watching. And somehow you know, you passed. The air smells like saffron and wet stone. It's the festival of Bastet tonight, though you wouldn't know it yet. The village is quiet, preparations unfolding like whispered prayers. Woven garlands of lotus and myrrh hang between rooftops. Lamps filled with scented oil line the pathways. Cats wander freely, pausing to inspect offerings with bored dignity. But you're not headed to the temple square. You're being led elsewhere. By a cat, of course. A gray one with striking blue eyes and a notch in her tail. You haven't seen her before. Which is strange because here you know every feline face. Still, she walks with purpose, glancing back now and then, making sure you follow. You pass through the date groves out past the water wheel and into a clearing lit by dappled sunbeams. And there in the center sits a man robed, old but sharp-eyed. At his feet, a circle of cats. He looks up, smiles faintly. "Welcome," he says. "We've been waiting." You sit slowly. He points to the gray cat. "That one chose you." You want to ask for what, but the words feel too loud here. Instead, he reaches into a reed basket and pulls out a small wooden box. Inside sand. And buried in that sand, something glints. A charm. Carved from bone. Shaped like a sitting cat, its tail curled protectively around its paws. "Do you know the story of the Oracle of Bastet?" he asks. You shake your head. It only happened once every generation, he says. A sacred night when a cat would choose the next high priest, not by blood, not by lineage, but by presence. By trust. He gestures to the circle around him. These cats carry memories. Some believe they remember lives lived long ago. Others believe they are assigned not born. Each one is drawn to a soul whose purpose echoes their own. He hands you the charm. Mainstream historians barely touch on the Oracle of Bastet. They mention the festival's grand, wild, full of music and wine, but they rarely explore the secret rites, the choosing of leadership, the feline test of purity. But fringe scholars, those who study temple graffiti and untranslatable poems, speak of it often. One particularly obscure line reads, "The paw upon the sandal decides the voice of the goddess." That phrase makes no sense until now. The elder continues, "When the high priest dies, the temple waits. No candidate is announced. No contest is held. The cats decide." You raise an eyebrow. "How?" He smiles. They sit. On the one who listens. You blink. "That's it. That's it." He shrugs. But it only happens once, and it never happens wrong. Tonight, you're invited to watch. The temple glows in gold and amber. Perfumed oils burn in clay dishes. Music rises soft flutes. Steady drums the hush of prayer under breath. Crowds fill the temple courtyard, all gather to witness the choosing. Some come for the show. Others, especially the elders, come with hope, with reverence. You sit along the edge trying to blend in, but the gray cat has curled in your lap again, which isn't helping. At the center of the ceremony, 3 candidates kneel. All well-dressed, all chosen by different temple orders, each trying very hard to look calm. Then silence. And out they come. The cats, dozens of them, temple-raised, fed by the hand of tradition, believed to carry a flicker of Bastet's gaze. They stroll between the candidates, circle once, twice. Some sit, some don't. Then a white cat pads forward. She walks up to one of the candidates, sniffs him, lies down beside him. The crowd gasps. The priestess steps forward and lifts her arms. Bastet has spoken. Cheers erupt, but then something odd. The gray cat in your lap stretches, walks forward, right past the chosen one, and leaps onto the platform, onto the sandal of the high priestess herself. She freezes. The crowd falls silent again, and the priestess kneels. Her voice shakes. She says, "Not yet." Historians still argue whether these ceremonies were staged, whether the cats were trained. But what they can't explain are the patterns. The way so many leaders chosen this way were later called seer healer vision. The priestess turns to you. Come, you blink. Me, the crowd turns. The cat meows, and the priestess smiles. Looks like she's not done choosing after all. You don't remember how you made it to the inner sanctum. You just moved. One step, then another, led by the gentle tail flick of the gray cat as she wove between marble columns. The crowd faded. The lights dimmed. The music, still echoing outside, became nothing more than a distant rhythm, like the beat of your own heart in your ears. The priestess walks behind you, quiet as a breath. This chamber, she says, is not drawn on any map. It is older than the temple above it. Older than the village. Some say older than the river itself. That's probably poetic exaggeration. Probably. You descend a narrow stairwell. The walls tighten around you, etched with images you don't recognize. Not the usual pantheon of gods, not Ra, not Anubis, just cats. And not in their usual poses of elegance or repose. These are warriors, eyes glowing, claws drawn, teeth bared at monsters with too many legs or shadows for faces. One mural shows a cat stretched across a doorway, barring some slithering darkness from entering. Below it, a single line of glyphs. Where paws stand, chaos halts. You reach the bottom. The chamber is round, lit by a single shaft of moonlight cutting through the ceiling. In the center lies a stone table, flat wide, carved with constellations in a spiral. On top, a sleeping cat. Or maybe a statue. You're not sure. You don't move. Neither does the priestess. Paws against the underworld, she whispers. That's what we call this place. A shiver slides down your spine. Centuries ago, she continues, before Bastet's temple was raised. This was a border between what we can see and what should never be seen. You glance again at the murals. They believed cats were born here. Not as animals, as answers. Mainstream history rarely touches on this level of myth. It prefers fax pottery structure. But some ancient writings, especially those deemed unfit for the libraries, paint a far more mystical role for cats. Not just as protectors of homes or symbols of fertility, but as literal sentries between dimensions. One fringe text, translated only once then, buried again, reads, "When the gate cracks, she will come. When the breath stops, she will hiss. When the world closes its eyes, she will remain awake." You stare at the table. The sleeping cat opens one eye, just one, and you feel it again, that shiver, that whisper inside your chest. Like something remembering your name before you were even born. The priestess steps forward and sets down a small bowl of milk. The cat, yes, definitely alive, stretches slowly and drinks once. Just once. Then she walks. She circles you, then nudges your shin, and returns to her table. The priestess exhales. You've been acknowledged. You exhale too because it turns out you've been holding your breath. She offers you a seat near the wall. You sink down, eyes adjusting, watching as more cats appear from hidden alcoves, one by one. Silent, blinking. They take positions around the chamber facing outward. As if watching the walls, not you. As if guarding something you don't want to know is trying to get in. You whisper, "Do they always watch like this?" The priestess nods. Every night. And if they stop, she doesn't answer, but you both know the answer. Suddenly, a low rumble echoes through the floor like distant thunder underground. The cats don't react, which makes you even more nervous. The priestess rises. It's just the world reminding us it's not yet finished with its tricks. You stay a while longer. The walls feel older than time. The cats blink slowly, methodically. One yawns. Another flexes its paws, claws, sliding out like blades before retreating. You close your eyes just for a moment. And when you open them again, they're all staring at you. Not hostile, not afraid, just measuring. The gray cat is back in your lap, her eyes locked on yours. You hear or think you hear a voice, not out loud but somewhere deeper. If you listen, we'll whisper. If you stray, we'll know. Then she curls into a ball and purrs. You wake to sunlight cutting through a crack in the ceiling, warm and golden, the kind of light that makes the world feel safe again until you realize you're still underground. Still surrounded by stone, still watched by a dozen cats that haven't moved an inch. The gray cat rises first, stretches, leaps from your lap and pads silently toward the spiral carved table. She pauses, glances over her shoulder, then disappears into the shadows behind it. The priestess reappears without sound, as if conjured by thought alone. "It's time," she says. You're not sure for what, but at this point you've learned not to ask, just follow the cat. She leads you out of the hidden chamber, back through the narrow passageway of warrior murals and carved stars, back into the sunlit temple where the air smells like honey and saffron again. It's like stepping between lifetimes, except something's different now. Everyone sees you, not just the villagers, but the cats. They don't just glance in your direction, they look at you. Long, studied. Some even follow you for a few paces as if double-checking. You've been changed, marked, and people can feel it. That evening, the village gathers once more, not for celebration, but for remembrance. A death has occurred, not of a person, of a guardian. The temple cat, the one, has passed in her sleep. No ceremony, no pain. She curled beside the altar, let out one final sigh, and was still. The high priestess announces it without tears, only reverence. She has gone to join those beyond the gate. She guards the boundary now from the other side. You find yourself walking with the others down the procession path, flanked by torches and draped in lotus petals. At the front, the cat's small linen-wrapped form rests on a wooden platform carried not by priests but by children. Behind them walk cats, not following, leading. They part the crowd like royalty. No one dares speak. Some villagers reach out and gently touch the hem of the linen just once, then bow their heads. The burial site lies near the Garden of Stars, where the oldest guardians sleep beneath carved stone and sacred symbols. You've been here before, but now it's different. You're invited into the circle. As the body is lowered into the earth, the gray cat sits beside the grave. Her eyes shine. Her tail doesn't move. A priest places a single object beside the linen shroud, a whisker. Not just any whisker, her whisker. It's slid carefully into a notch on a carved obsidian slab that reads, "She weighed lies and found them light." Then silence. No chants, no flames, only the sound of cats breathing. And in that stillness, something happens. The gray cat stands and walks toward you. She sits at your feet, looks up, and nods. There's a rustle behind you. You turn. The villagers are backing away. Not out of fear, but recognition. The high priestess steps forward, holding a bundle wrapped in deep blue cloth. She places it in your hands, inside a collar, not for a cat, For you, it's not symbolic, it's ceremonial. An heirloom passed down only when a new guardian human, or otherwise, is chosen to serve in the space between the living and the sacred. You've been seen, she says, and not just by us. Mainstream historians might scoff at such things. They'd call it folklore, local ritual, charming nonsense. But they never met the cats. Never felt a whisker brush their skin and shiver down to the soul. Never stood at the edge of the tomb and heard a growl behind the veil. The gray cat curls once around your legs. You lower the collar. She steps forward and lets you place it on her. A perfect fit. The high priestess nods. You'll walk together now. She doesn't mean through the village. She means through all thresholds. You walk back under the moon, side by side, no leash, no command. You don't need them, because the line between watcher and watched no longer exists. It never really did. The village feels different now. Not louder or busier, just quieter, calmer. Like something exhaled and the breath won't need to return for a long while. You sense it in the way people walk with ease instead of caution. In the way the temple bells chime not as a warning but as a lullaby. Even the air smells cleaner, as if the dust itself has settled out of respect. You and the gray cat, your companion now, though the title feels laughably small. Walk through the square, pausing at doorways where people offer bowls of milk or a warm hand on your shoulder. No words, just thanks. For what exactly you don't know. And then you hear it. A sound you haven't heard in days. A baby crying. Which in most places might be a nuisance. But here, it means new life, continuation. You follow the sound and find a young mother in the shade of a fig tree swaying gently as her infant wails. She looks tired, overwhelmed. But when she sees the gray cat approach, something shifts in her expression. The cat jumps lightly into her lap. The child stops crying. Instantly, the mother exhales a laugh that turns to a sob. She did the same with my sister's child, she says softly. She remembers. You kneel beside her. Place a hand on her arm. You don't need to say anything. You just stay for a few breaths until the rhythm of the world feels right again. Later, you're summoned to the temple one last time. But this isn't a ritual. It's a gift. The high priestess leads you to a small chamber at the rear of the sanctuary. It's plain, clay walls, a reed mat, a single stool, and in the center a scroll, unmarked, untitled. She hands it to you with a faint smile. You've seen what few do. You've crossed into quiet spaces and returned. Write what you remember. Leave the rest to the cats. You sit down. Unroll the papyrus. And for the first time you write, not in symbols, not in stories, in whispers, in breaths, in claw marks and curls of fur, and silent watchers who never truly blink. You write of Bastet, of vanished men and broken tombs, of whiskers laid upon judgment, of kittens with ancient eyes, of you, of her. The gray cat curls beside you, asleep, or pretending. It doesn't matter, because you now know this truth. She is always listening. And now, the temple grows quiet. The lamps dim one by one, their golden glow fading into soft pools of shadow. The scent of myrrh drifts through the halls like sleep itself. Somewhere in the distance, a cat purrs a deep, slow rhythm that echoes like a heartbeat, steady and soothing. You sit back. Let your shoulders drop. Let your breath slow. You're still surrounded by stone and ancient stories. Yes, but now you feel them differently. Not heavy, not sharp, just protective. Worn smooth by time. A warm hand resting gently on your back. The cats begin to retreat into corners, into sunbeams, and empty baskets, into places only they know. They curl and blink and dream dreams older than pyramids. They've seen what needed to be seen, guarded what needed to be guarded. And you've been accepted. No more tests, no more proving. You walk freely, now watch not with suspicion but with trust. With knowing. So close your eyes. Let the silence of the temple wrap around you. Let the hum of ancient chants float just beyond your thoughts. Let the memory of whiskers brush your cheek soft and fleeting. And if you feel something warm curl beside you, weightless, familiar, steady, don't open your eyes. It's just her. She's watching. She always is. Sweet dreams.